Landon had always been that guy, the kind who walks into a room and somehow everyone feels a little better just because he's there. He had that easy smile, that messy hair that looked like it belonged in a magazine, and the kind of voice that made even dumb jokes sound charming. People liked him without trying. Girls especially. And for as long as I'd known him, Landon had always had a girlfriend. His current one, Jessica, was the kind of pretty that came with good lighting and 1,000 curated selfies. They'd been together since sophomore year. She was smart, confident, a little cold around me, but I told myself I wasn't reading into it. Landon and I, we met freshman year. Random dorm assignment. One shared joke turned into late-night ramen, turned into hours of gaming, turned into 5 years of friendship that somehow outlasted most of our relationships. We didn't have to explain anything. We just got each other. He'd come over after class or work, kick off his shoes, collapse on my couch like it belonged to him. I always had a pizza box waiting or a half-drunk bottle of whiskey sitting on the counter. Sometimes we'd smoke and just sink into the kind of conversations you only have at 1 a.m. when the world feels soft and far away. We'd pass out there, limbs tangled in opposite directions, heads barely touching the same pillow. He'd groan about back pain in the morning, I'd toss him a Tylenol and a smirk, and we'd go right back to doing it again the next weekend. And through it all, I kept my secret. I liked him. More than liked, if I'm honest. I'd known for a while, maybe from the first time he laughed so hard he fell into me, or the night he whispered, "You're the only person who actually sees me," when he was 3 beers in. But I never said a word. Because Landon was straight. Landon had Jessica. Landon was my best friend. And messing with that felt like stepping on the only thing in my life that actually made sense. So I learned to live with the quiet ache. The way my stomach flipped when he pulled me in for a hug that lasted just a little too long. The way I noticed the shape of his hands when he reached across me for the remote. The way I could feel the warmth of his thigh against mine when we sat too close during a movie neither of us were really watching. I told myself I was imagining things. That he was just affectionate. Casual. One of those guys who didn't care about boundaries because he never had to think about them. But lately, I wasn't so sure. Started small. He hugged me more often but slower, like he was waiting for me to pull away, and when I didn't, he lingered. His hand would rest on my shoulder for a beat too long. His arm would stay draped across the back of the couch even when I leaned into it. He started calling me man less and just saying my name, like it meant something. And the glances? Those were the hardest to ignore. When we played games and I beat him, he didn't just groan. He'd look at me, lips parted like he was trying to say something else. When I talked about dating, his jaw would clench just slightly. And when I laughed at his jokes, he'd look proud. Not in a friendly way. In a way that felt personal. I caught him staring once. Full on, eyes on me, no joke behind it. Just watching. I asked him what, and he blinked like I'd snapped him out of something. "Nothing," he said, smiling too fast. "You've got pizza sauce on your face." I didn't, but I wiped anyway. That night, when he fell asleep on the couch again, his hand brushed mine. He didn't pull away. I lay there in the dark, listening to his breathing, feeling the weight of everything unsaid pressed down like a second blanket. I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know if it meant anything, but it was getting harder to pretend I didn't feel it. And harder still to pretend he didn't feel it, too. It was a Friday night, the kind that felt heavier than it should have. The sky outside was thick with clouds, and the usual rhythm of our hangout felt just a little off. Landon showed up late. No six-pack, no jokes, just a tired smile and slumped shoulders. He dropped onto the couch like the weight of the world was stitched into his hoodie. I handed him the pre-roll I'd been saving, and he took it wordlessly, lighting up with a sigh that said more than he ever could. I waited. Landon didn't rush when he was upset. He simmered. After a few quiet puffs and a long silence, he finally spoke. "Jess and I had a fight." I turned down the volume on the TV. "Bad." He exhaled slowly. "I don't even know. I mean, yeah, kind of. She thinks I'm distant lately. Says I'm shutting her out." I didn't say anything right away. I could have told him I'd noticed it too. How he'd stopped bringing her up in stories. How he hadn't posted with her in weeks. But I didn't want to lead him anywhere. I wanted him to walk there on his own. She doesn't get it, he continued, leaning his head back against the couch. She wants me to open up, but every time I try, it turns into a fight. It's like she wants the version of me she made up in her head. Not me. I handed the joint back to him. So who are you then? He glanced at me sideways, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. Honestly, I feel more like myself here. With you. I didn't know what to do with that. Landon wasn't the type to say things he didn't mean. But sometimes he said things that meant too much, and then moved on like they were nothing. Like, I come over here and we chill and there's no pressure to perform, you know? He said. You don't expect me to be someone I'm not. You just get me. I swallowed hard, feeling his words settle in places I didn't want stirred. I don't know what I'd do without you, he added, barely above a whisper. That one hit different. I turned to him, but he was already staring at the ceiling, lost in the smoke curling around the low lamp light. You ever feel like you're living someone else's life? He asked suddenly. All the time, I said. He looked at me, really looked, and for a second the space between us felt too quiet, too honest. Then he laughed softly, like he was embarrassed by the moment. Sorry, I'm being weird. It's the weed. I smiled. You're not being weird. You're just being real. We didn't talk much after that. The joint burned down to a roach. The show we'd been watching ran 2 episodes without either of us noticing. And somewhere in the middle of all that, Landon shifted on the couch and laid his head on my chest. I froze. His arm draped lazily across my stomach. Not intentionally seductive, not planned, just like he needed to be close to someone, and I was there. You good? I asked quietly, trying to sound casual. He mumbled. You're warm. I didn't move. I didn't breathe too deeply. I just lay there, feeling the weight of him against me, his breath brushing against my collarbone, slow and steady. My heart was doing something it hadn't done in years, not just racing, but aching. He shifted a little closer, curled slightly around me, and I lay there, eyes wide open in the dark, completely still. There was nothing overtly romantic about the position.
No whispered promises, no suggestive touches.
Just quiet closeness, and that was almost worse, because it was real, raw. The kind of moment that could only happen when someone let their guard down all the way. I could feel the rise and fall of his chest, the warmth of his skin through my t-shirt. I wanted to believe it meant something, that maybe, deep down, he was reaching for me the way I'd been aching for him all this time. But I couldn't let myself hope, because hope in moments like this was dangerous. It whispered stories you couldn't confirm and left you broken when the light came back on. So I closed my eyes and pretended to sleep, even though his breath on my neck made every second feel like both heaven and heartbreak. It started with a text. Hey, Jess is out of town for a few days. Mind if I crash? My fingers hovered over the keyboard for a beat longer than necessary. I told myself it was no big deal, just Landon needing space. A change of scenery. Some time to clear his head. Still, I typed faster than I meant to. Of course. Always. He showed up that evening with a duffel bag slung over one shoulder and 2 boxes of pizza balanced in the other hand. Thought I'd pay rent in carbs, he joked. I laughed, trying to act like this was normal. Like my heart wasn't already racing from just seeing him walk through the door with that familiar half-smile and hoodie I'd seen him wear 100 times. The hoodie I once wished he'd forget and leave behind. We spent the night exactly like we always did. Gaming, eating too much, talking about nothing and everything. But the air felt different. Lighter in some ways, and heavier in others. He talked more than usual, about work, about his parents, about how tired he was of always having to explain himself to people. With you, he said between bites of pepperoni. I don't have to perform. I don't feel like I'm on stage. I wanted to ask what role he thought he was playing with Jessica, but I didn't. I just nodded, held his gaze longer than I usually let myself, and smiled. It was after midnight when I finally said, I should set up the air mattress. Landon waved a hand. Don't bother. I'll just crash in your bed. We've done it before. Yeah, I said slowly. In high school, when we were 16. We're not exactly kids anymore. He grinned, already pulling off his hoodie. Come on. It's not weird unless we make it weird. I stared at him for a moment, unsure whether I admired his nonchalance or resented it. Okay, I said quietly. Not weird. We brushed our teeth side by side in the tiny bathroom, like some domestic routine we'd rehearsed 100 times in an alternate life. He flicked water at me. I retaliated with a playful shove. And then we were both laughing, too loudly for the hour, like we were trying to outrun the weight of the night. We got into bed, fully clothed, backs to each other. A cautious foot of space between us. But I felt everything. Every shift in the mattress. Every slow inhale he took. Every movement under the blanket that made my skin hyper-aware of the fact that he was right there. I didn't sleep much. Not because he did anything. He didn't. He lay there quietly, breathing soft and slow, his body radiating warmth that crept across the mattress like a current I couldn't escape. My back was to him, but I could picture the way his chest rose and fell, the curve of his neck against the pillow. I imagined turning over, just to look, just to see if he was asleep, just to see if maybe he was lying awake too. But I didn't move. Instead, I stared at the ceiling, counting the seconds between breaths, feeling the tension grow tighter with each one. It wasn't sexual, not entirely. It was something deeper. He was in my space, but more than that, he was in my world, cracking it open inch by inch just by being here. I wondered if he could feel it too. This invisible thread tightening between us, pulled taut by things neither of us had the courage to say out loud. At some point, maybe around 3 a.m., he rolled over. I could feel the mattress shift behind me, the heat of his body edging closer. His hand didn't touch me, but it was close. So close I could almost feel the breath from his exhale graze the back of my neck. And that was enough to keep me wide awake until the sun came up. When the morning light finally spilled in through the window, I was still lying there, still facing away, still pretending I didn't want to reach back and pull him in. He didn't say anything when he woke, just stretched, yawned, and padded to the bathroom. But when he passed the bed again, he looked at me with something I couldn't name. And I knew. This weekend wasn't going to be like the others. The next 2 days were quiet. Easy. Too easy, maybe. Landon didn't leave once. He made himself at home like it was nothing, dropping his stuff in the corner of my room, eating straight from my fridge, stealing the good blankets during naps on the couch. It was the kind of domestic closeness I never realized I craved until it was just there, effortless, natural. But with every hour that passed, something else crept in. Something quieter, slower, but undeniable. He was more relaxed around me, more physical. He nudged me playfully every time I beat him at Mario Kart. He flopped down on the couch with his legs draped halfway into my lap like it didn't mean anything. He'd walk out of the bathroom shirtless, a towel hanging low on his hips, scratching his stomach like I wasn't standing right there pretending not to look. The first time I caught myself staring, I looked away fast, too fast. But the second time I didn't, and I think he noticed. That night, after a lazy dinner and another round of whatever show we were half watching, he dropped onto my bed with a groan, stretching out on his stomach. "My back's killing me," he said, voice muffled into the pillow. "You've been laying around for 2 days," I teased. "That's not an injury, that's karma." He flipped over and stuck his tongue out at me. Says the guy who's left the house once this week. He wasn't wrong. We ended up back in bed, propped against the headboard, movie playing softly on the laptop. The lights were off except for the amber glow of the lamp in the corner. One of those rare quiet moments where the world feels like it's holding its breath. At some point, Landon leaned over and rested his head on my shoulder. I froze. Not because it was the first time, it wasn't, but because of the way he did it. Slowly, deliberately, like he'd thought about it, like it was okay. "You're better than a girlfriend anyway," he murmured. "No drama, no rules, just good food and video games." I forced a laugh. "Wow, that's the bar," he chuckled. "Hey, don't knock it. Low maintenance is underrated." We went quiet again. His head was still on my shoulder. His arm had somehow drifted over my stomach. The weight of it was casual, but his thumb moved slightly. Not a full stroke, just a shift. Our faces were close, closer than they should have been. I could smell his shampoo, feel the warmth of his breath against my collarbone. And in that moment, the world narrowed down to the two of us, tangled in shadows and unspoken things. I turned my head, slowly. He didn't move. His eyes met mine, half-lidded, unreadable. The kiss was right there, inches away. One tilt of the chin, one lean forward. I almost did it, but I didn't. I held still, trembling on the edge of something I couldn't take back. And he saw it. I know he did. His gaze dropped to my mouth for half a second, then back up. He didn't flinch, didn't smile, just held the moment like he wasn't sure what came next either. Then he blinked and pulled back slightly, not away, just enough to rest his head on the pillow beside me. We said nothing. We lay there, face to face, the laptop screen now dark, only the lamp casting soft golden light across the room. Under the blanket, our hands found each other. Not holding, not grabbing, just brushing. A soft meeting of fingertips that said everything we were too afraid to voice. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. I lay there, staring into the space between us, feeling every inch of him without touching more than his hand. And for the first time, I wondered if maybe I wasn't just imagining things. Maybe Landon didn't know what he wanted. Maybe I was part of him figuring it out. Maybe he was part of me doing the same. When sleep finally pulled me under, I was still facing him, still waiting. The call came in sometime after dinner. I was rinsing dishes when I heard Landon's ringtone echo through the apartment. That short guitar riff he always forgot to change. I turned just in time to see his screen light up on the coffee table. Jessica. He hesitated before picking it up, then walked into my room, shutting the door softly behind him. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but the walls were thin, and his voice wasn't exactly quiet. At first it was calm, clipped, but controlled. Then I heard the edge start to rise. No, Jess, I told you I needed space. That's all. Pause. No, I'm not with anyone. Longer pause. I'm at a friend's, like I said. Another beat of silence, and then the volume jumped. God, why do you always twist everything? I stopped drying my hands and leaned against the counter, heart thudding. It went on like that for 10 more minutes. Voices rising, breaking, falling into that tired rhythm of people who'd run out of real things to say, but kept arguing anyway, just to prove they still had something left to fight over. Then, silence. The bedroom door opened. He didn't look at me, just grabbed his jacket from the back of the couch and muttered, "I need to walk." I didn't ask questions, just nodded. I'll leave the door unlocked. And then he was gone. I sat in the quiet with the TV playing low and my chest feeling far too full. It wasn't jealousy, not exactly. It was more like dread, like the spell was breaking, like reality had knocked, and Landon had finally opened the door. I didn't know if he was walking to clear his head or walking away from this. For me, the minutes crawled. I didn't text. I didn't call. I just waited. Eventually, I got into bed, left the lamp on, and lay there staring at the ceiling, pretending not to hope. The front door clicked open a little after midnight. I heard his footsteps, slow and measured. No dramatic entrance, no heavy sighs. Just the shuffle of someone who was tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. He didn't say a word as he walked down the hall. I closed my eyes as I heard him pause outside my room. The door creaked softly, then silence. Then the soft rustle of clothes being dropped onto the chair. The click of the light switch, and then the mattress dipped behind me. He climbed in slowly, like he was still deciding if he had the right to be there. But once he settled, I could feel it, the difference. He wasn't keeping his distance anymore. His body was close, closer than it had ever been. No space between us. His breathing, calm but uneven, brushed against the back of my neck. I kept still, eyes closed. Pretending sleep came easy, but I wasn't prepared for what came next. His hand, warm, slow, hesitant, reached out and settled gently on my chest. Not possessive, not playful, just present. Fingers spread lightly over my heart. Couldn't help it, my breath caught. "What are you doing?" I whispered, voice hoarse in the dark. There was a long pause. His hand didn't move. "I don't know," he murmured. Another beat. "But I don't want to stop." His words hung in the air like something sacred or dangerous. I wasn't sure which. I turned slightly, just enough to glance back at him. His eyes were open, searching mine.
No defenses. No jokes.
Just him. In that moment, he didn't look confused. He looked sure, not of what he wanted long-term, maybe, but of me, of this moment, of something real and unspoken that had lived between us for far too long. I didn't say anything. I just reached up and covered his hand with mine. He exhaled. A slow, trembling release. We stayed like that for a long time. No movement. No words. Just his chest rising and falling against my back. Our hands linked quietly over my heart. He didn't try anything. He didn't push. He just stayed. And I realized then, it wasn't about figuring everything out. It wasn't about labels or answers or declarations. It was about letting go just enough to hold on to something honest. And for now, that was enough. I woke up to pale morning light seeping in through the blinds, soft and gray like the sky hadn't made up its mind yet. The apartment was quiet except for the subtle sound of breathing behind me. Steady, slow. Landon was still there. His arm had slipped away sometime during the night, but he hadn't left the bed. We weren't tangled in some cinematic mess of limbs and sheets. We were just there, sharing space, sharing silence. I stayed still for a few more minutes, eyes open, staring at the soft fold in the blanket in front of me. I could feel the weight of what had happened pressing against my spine like a question I didn't want to answer yet. Eventually, I turned. Landon was awake. His eyes met mine immediately, like he'd been waiting. "Morning," I said quietly. "Hey," he replied, his voice lower than usual. Rough, like he hadn't used it yet today. We stared at each other for a second, maybe longer. Then he pushed himself up onto one elbow and rubbed the back of his neck, eyes darting around like he was searching for something to focus on that wasn't me. "So," he started, voice hesitant. "About last night." My chest tightened. He wasn't looking at me now. He was staring at the blanket, like it held the script for whatever came next. "I don't know what this means," he said finally. "But I know I felt something." I didn't breathe. "I'm not saying I suddenly have everything figured out," he continued. "I'm still trying to untangle. A lot. But I wasn't drunk. I wasn't high. That was me." I nodded slowly. "Okay." He glanced at me again, brow furrowed. "Okay." I sat up a little, wrapping the blanket around my shoulders. "Yeah, because I've felt something for a long time, Landon. And I've been scared to say it." He didn't speak. "I didn't want to mess up what we had," I added. "I thought maybe I was just reading into things. But I wasn't. Not last night." Landon looked down, his jaw tense. Not clenched in anger. More like he was holding something in that he didn't know how to carry yet. "I care about you," I said, softer now. "I don't need a label or some dramatic speech. I just need to know you're not going to pretend it didn't happen." His eyes lifted to mine, slow and steady. "I'm not pretending," he said.
I'm confused. Yeah.
Scared, maybe, but not pretending. That was enough. More than enough. I leaned back into the pillows, exhaling slowly, and he followed. Not close this time, just beside me. A quiet agreement to keep the space open. A few minutes passed before he reached out, fingers brushing mine under the blanket like a truce. I didn't grab his hand right away. I let the touch settle. Let it mean what it needed to mean. Then I closed my hand over his. He let out a breath. A real one. Deep. Unburdened. We didn't say much the rest of the morning. He helped me make breakfast, clumsy with the eggs as usual. We played a game half-heartedly. Watched part of a movie. It was like everything had shifted and nothing had at the same time. But the silence between us wasn't awkward anymore. It was calm. I missed the way he dragged his feet when he walked barefoot on my hardwood floor. I missed the way he grumbled when I beat him at games, how he always took 2 slices of pizza even when he said he wasn't that hungry. I missed the way he said my name when he was too tired to be guarded. And most of all, I missed the way it felt to fall asleep knowing he was right there. Not as a friend, not as a maybe, but just as himself, walls down, hand in mine. I replayed it all in my head, that night, that morning, the small moments that filled the space between. And even as the silence stretched longer, I didn't let myself spiral. Because for the first time, I knew it wasn't just in my head. He had felt it too. He said so. That was the thread I held onto when everything else felt like it was unraveling. On the fifth night, just after I'd climbed into bed, alone again, my phone lit up on the nightstand. Landon, I can't stop thinking about that night. I stared at the message for a long time. Not because I didn't know how I felt, but because I finally felt something clear, something still and real. I didn't rush to respond. I just let the words sit there, glowing softly in the dark. Because that message, it wasn't a promise. It wasn't a confession, but it was a door. And maybe, for now, that was all we needed. I glanced around my bedroom, the bed still a little messy, one pillow still holding the faint shape of where he'd last slept. The blanket was pulled halfway down, like he'd just stepped out for a minute. And if I leaned close enough, I could still smell his cologne in the sheets, that mix of cedar and something warm I could never quite place. I reached over, turned off the lamp, and laid back down. This time I didn't feel alone, because whatever happened next, whether he came back tomorrow or in a month or not at all, I knew the truth of what had passed between us. And that truth was enough to hold on to, at least for now. My phone lit up again beside me.